Well, you know what? I can't stop thinking about the last show we did, Hal. That was just incredibly powerful imagery. Um, but it made me think, Cole, about how, and this is something that we love to talk about, right? How do we show up as photographers? It's what I like to talk about, what my lectures are generally based around. But boy, that one just shook me to my bones because those portraits were not ordinary in any way, shape, or form. They were extraordinary. And so it just made me think about, do we as landscape photographers, primarily I think that's a lot of what who's watching our channel. Do we take the time that Hal did, and to get to know his subject, to get to know those people, to be very intimate with those people, to allow them to open up, to share those stories of rape and murder and whatever. I mean, it's just extraordinary. So it just really made me think deeply about how can I better my process? And I wonder if I can use what Hal has shown so clearly to be more connected to even a landscape.
Well, what came to mind is one day we were on the dunes in Death Valley, and we're very respectful and we're trying to keep ourselves together. And we generally will sit for a while, maybe a half hour, then we'll move to another location,
Right.
trying to minimize our footprint. And all of a sudden, here comes this guy running, bing, shooting, bing, shooting, bing, shooting, bing, shooting, bing, shooting. And it always brings to my mind a pinball machine with that ball going ding, 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 ding. A hyper, the Energizer bunny who can't
Yep.
stop
Yep.
versus sitting still and getting to know your subject, whether it be a person, as Hal did, or getting to know your landscape and
Yeah, the
getting to know
dunes.
it. What does that mean? Getting to know your landscape.
Well, really good question. I think I've got some answer to that. Because if you just show up at the dunes and you do like the pinball guy, um, you just it's very what's the word I'm looking for? You're just getting little perceptions of the landscape. You're not really seeing the shapes, that sinuous curve. You're not seeing the subtle shadow that leads into the darker shadow in the dune. You're not seeing the repetition of the patterns in the dunes. You're not seeing the sky as a possibility to, you know what I mean? There's no way if you just set up, go click within 3 or 4 minutes that you have any clue as to what's really, really, really in that landscape, the intimacy of it, the intricacies of that landscape. And oftentimes you're going to find a photo within that landscape. Has that happened to you? You get home and you're looking at the photo you made and you realize, oh my gosh, there's like three more photos that I could have created, especially in the dunes. This happens all the time to me, that I could have created. And so, if only I had spent more time when I realized I was being taken by something, to really sit with that moment of being taken so that I could do a much better job, much like Hal did. I mean, I can't imagine Hal, those any of those people walked in and he showed up and he said, "Hey, sit
Or he had six
out of
people
here."
sitting in the waiting room and he
Yeah.
gave each person 5 minutes and then he's on to another one.
Not,
That guy in the dunes, and I know he's a good guy and I don't want to speak for him, but it felt like quantity over quality
yeah.
because, again, it's easy to look for the quick shot, but to really see deeply, to get to know your subject. And we're talking earlier amongst ourselves that on our vision retreat, that the first day when we take them to this undisclosed location,
Mhm.
we're going to suggest they wander for a bit, find something that speaks to them, and then sit without photographing for at least an hour,
Yeah.
just getting to know your subject. And that's a game I often play with myself when I go to a location. I go, there's nothing here. And then I'll
Yeah.
stop myself and I'll say, there's always something here. Sit, be still, look, feel.
Yeah. Another, I may have shared this, but probably a long, long time ago. We have a lot, I mean, millions of new followers. So, Nancy Rodenberg, my mentor, she brought us to her home for a particular workshop and brought us out into the woods. We had a little sack lunch, and then she blindfolded all of us, spun us around through it to get us disoriented, and then brought us each 10 of us to a separate tree. And so she said, okay. And she specifically said, there'll be no talking. And she looked right at me. She goes, John, there's no talking. Anyways, and so I did as told. I mean, we got the blindfolds on. I had no idea where I was being taken. Get to a tree, and all 10 of us went. And there is a point to this fitting in with what we're talking about. So the question, at the end of it, you spin you around again. She says you can't let go of the tree. That's the rule. And so I could put my hand on the tree here and feel all the way around, which is what I did. So I had a circumference of whatever 6 feet from the tree. I could feel as high up on the tree as I wanted to, as low. I felt around on the ground. I smelled the tree. I felt the bark of the tree. And that was the point of the whole exercise, right? And then so you go back, spin you around, come back, sit down. And then she says, okay, everybody go find your tree.
Ah,
How many people do you think found their tree?
all of
Every single one,
Oh, really?
without any difficulty at all.
Huh.
So the point is, getting back to what we're talking about here, it was to help you realize how little I mean, if I had just gone and she pointed that tree out and you sat with it for 2 seconds, I sat with that tree for 10 minutes. I can remember the bark pattern right now in my brain. I can remember the short tree there, the bigger tree there. I remember how big around it was. It was a really valuable exercise that I was not very aware, not very present, if you will, with my landscape. And that's what I think Hal has reinforced to me, that I need to do a better job over and over and over again, every time I go out, of remembering that experience of being with that tree and have that same experience with my eyes wide open, seeing what the texture is, seeing what the conditions are, seeing what the light's doing, what's happening in the sky. Are there other scenes within that scene? And that's essentially what Hal was doing. And so again, thanks, Hal.
Another thing that I do, and I've done this at this undisclosed location we're going to be going to, is just sometimes I'll just close my eyes
Huh.
and I'll just listen. I
Oh,
don't know what that does, but we were always taught as a kid through the movies that a blind person, had those other senses heightened. And I don't know how that fits into the process, but I'll do that sometimes and I'll listen. And in this undisclosed location, I'm always attracted by the crows and the ravens,
huh.
and so that becomes a part of my image. And it's not always about what you're seeing with your eyes, but what you're feeling. We're not creating for an audience, we're creating for ourselves. We're making diary entries. We are expressing ourselves through these images. And that's the goal, in my opinion, of the type of photography we endorse and pursue.
Yeah.
We're expressing ourselves. And that means that sometimes others may not understand or appreciate our images, but that's not the yardstick I measure my images by.
Right.
It's by how I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah, worthy discussion, I think, Cole, because I do think how we present ourselves to the landscape and how the landscape presents itself to us is important. And the more we can connect, the deeper the possibilities are for our images being way more meaningful, like Hal's portraits. So anyways, um, good thoughts. And once again, we appreciate you guys following us. You thought I was going to be funny there for a second, didn't you, Cole? Nah, we appreciate you guys following us, but ring that darn bell. What does the bell do? Do you know
We
what the
don't
bell
know.
does? I have no idea. Okay.